Hey folks, gonna do a little installation video on my string silencers. You can get these on my Etsy site and on my website. They're custom wool string silencers. You can get them in a bunch of different colors and sizes and all that stuff. So this is how you put them on. This is going to be how you get them from the package. You're going to have 2 bits of bowstring material. Usually it will match the colors on your silencer. I'm just kind of using funky colors today to make it easier to see on a video. But yeah, this is how it'll come in the package. I prefer my silencers tied to the outside of the string rather than going through the strands. If you prefer your silencer to go through the strands, you can just pull that right off the straw and shove it into the strands of your string, and then use the same procedure to tie it on to secure it. But I do prefer my silencers tied to the outside of the string. So this is how you do it. We're going to take our bowstring, flatten that loop out. We're going to put it into the straw like so, push the straw down onto the string, and then we simply grab the straw, pull the silencer off the straw, and we're done with the straw. Can have ourselves a nice tiny little beverage. All right, let's get this bow strung up. All right, so we've got our silencer on the string in the approximate location that we wanted. I usually put it at the quarter point on the string. So take a string, divide by 4, put it however many inches down from the top and up from the bottom that number is. You can also go do it at the 3rd point. If you've got 4 silencers, you want to put them at the quarter and 3rd points. And then you can also just move them up and down the string from there, which you can actually use to tune your arrows a little bit. Just moving that mass up and down your string will affect your arrow flight. Okay, so we've got the pieces of bowstring material that we're now going to use to tie the silencer on. So we're coming up on either side of the bowstring, right? Kind of like this forms an X. And we're just going to tie a double overhand, right? So we've got 1, and then we're going to go 2. That's our double overhand, and we're going to just snug that down. Nice and snug. Okay, now we're going to flip that over, and we're going to do the same thing with that other piece on the opposite sides, right? So we're making kind of a double overhand again, making a little X, and that will balance out. Forces starting to look like an actual silencer. Now you just want to snug those down alternately. Now comes the kind of tough part. So what we're going to do is we're going to secure these with constrictor knots. So how to tie constrictor knots. Going to start with the one we just did, right? We've got 2 strands coming out. We're going to take this top strand, move it over and to the other side and under the string, right? So now we have a top strand and a bottom strand. We're going to take this bottom strand, if I can grab it, and we're going to go over the top strand and over the string. And then we're going to take that strand and continue it underneath the bowstring, and then over top of the top strand, right? And then we're going to take the end of that and put it underneath that little X that we created, right? And we're going to tighten that up. and snug that down. Now we're going to move. I find it easiest to move to the other side of the string and do the same thing over there. So we're going to flip it again. Now this is where you need to be careful because it's easy to mix up which strands are already tied. We've got our old double overhand knot. So we're going to move that around the bottom. So we have, right? So it's poking out. It's poking out over here. We want to move it to the other side of the string and around the bottom of the string. That way, it's just so we keep that X shape on the string of on the silencer. So now, top strand, bottom strand. Basically, all the movement is done with the bottom strand. Kind of move the top strand goes here, bottom strand over the top strand, under the bowstring, over the top strand again, and through the X. Wham. And you snug that down. And now we have one constrictor knot on either side of this bowstring. So I'm going to tie a second one on both sides. So now this is already flipped, right? Let's go back and tie, remember, top strand, bottom strand, over top strand, under bowstring, over top strand, through the X, or underneath the X. Now we've got two constrictor knots on that side. Gonna flip the bow over, because at this point, these are getting pretty tight and secure. Bottom strand, top strand. Bottom strand, over top strand, underneath the bowstring, over the top strand again, and then underneath both of the strands, or kind of through that little X loop. And there we are. All right, so now this is pretty secure. It's pretty hard to move. You can still move it, get it where you want. Once you move it to where you want, just tighten up those constrictor knots. Again, pretty much as tight as you can go. Now, just gonna pull off these little guys, which are actually also constrictor knots. And that's going to let the silencer actually expand. Bam. Now, this is when I would trim these tails. I trim them basically because they're going to match the colors of your silencer. I trim them to about the same length as your silencer. Right? You could always tighten them down a bit more with pliers later. And they will also kind of puff up, just like the silencers do. Yeah. Those tails will puff up. And there you go. There is your string silencer. Might be a few errant long strands that you can just kind of trim if they're bothering you and sticking out a lot. But yeah, just take a few shots and that'll puff up quite nice. And the strands of wool will start to separate too, and you'll get a nice little round ball after a while. Yeah, and that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it's clear how to put these guys on.